Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Thomas James.
And I'm Lauren Downey. On tonight's show, we'll be talking about how the BGSU men's and women's basketball teams ended their season.
But before we take a look at all the highlights, reporter Sasha Gaylor joins us with what's happening in the news. Sasha?
Thanks, Thomas. In spirit of March Madness, there was a March Madness shootout at the Bowling Green Community Center on Monday. A lot of young people were there showing off their basketball skills, hoping to win a few prizes. Lucky winners received T-shirts and stadium salsa. To learn more about upcoming events at the BG Community Center, you can check out the event calendar on their website. Today, the BGSU softball team and baseball team will be in action. Softball is competing at IPFW, while the baseball team will compete against Shawnee State at Stellar Field. Both games start at 6 o'clock. And high school spring sports are kicking into gear, and the BG High School tennis team has 2 freshmen that are expected to do big things this season. Ryan Motzinger and Austin Eason are freshmen on the BG High School tennis team. They're already starting varsity, and they're expected to be some of the team's top players for the season.
Basically, they're going to be a real big part of the team, and that will give us the depth this year that we need.
Both Ryan and Austin started tennis lessons in 7th grade. Ryan says the extra lessons helped him become a better tennis player.
I guess I'm smarter. I can place the ball better, especially playing with the older guys. I have to be a little smarter. I can't just hit the ball wherever I want.
In a few matches, the duo will work together and compete against other teams.
Me and Austin, we're pretty close, and I think I do want to play singles, but playing doubles with him would also be fun. So we're really looking forward to this season and following seasons to come.
Sasha Gaillard reporting. And that's it for the news. Falcon Center will return right after this.
And welcome back to Falcon Center.
Women's basketball wrapped up their season at the Stroh Center last week. The women took on Virginia Commonwealth University in the first round of the National Invitation Tournament. To talk more about that, we welcome in Brad Woznicki and Dominique Kamen. Guys, welcome in.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. Let's just kind of quickly just wrap up in full the season that the women's team had, and then we'll dig deeper into certain games and players that made a difference this season.
Well, the women's basketball team definitely exceeded expectations this year, with 6 seniors leaving last year, including one of what has to be one of the all-time greats, Lauren Prohaska, and of course Tracy Pontius as well, and 4 other seniors to go along with them. You had 5 new freshmen come in this season, and only 1 returning senior, along with 1 returning starter. Mid-American Conference title, 8 straight for them. Definitely some accomplishments. And
let's talk about how they started their season, because it was off to actually a rough start, a 30-plus point loss at Dayton, and then a tough loss to Purdue to open up the Stroh Center. How did those games against a Horizon League team and then against a Big Ten powerhouse who ended up ranked in the tournament that later in the season, those losses, how did they kind of eat at the girls and maybe play into their regular season?
Well, that Dayton game, I think, was definitely a wake-up call. You know, you're going on the road, you see a team like Dayton who you knew coming into the season was going to be one of those possibly top 25 teams in NCAA women's basketball. And for a young team to come in there with just 1 senior and 1 returning starter, that really set the tone for you have to prepare a lot better in practice and get ready for those road games, because you're going to have them all season long with people looking to beat you at their home court.
And then also the Purdue game is big too. It's a big builder for a young team. They're a really good team, like you said, Lauren, and I think that's helped out down the stretch in the season, which helped lead the women to the NIT tournament.
I feel like these losses to those teams, it just helped the team, you know, gave them more of the initiative to go out in the season and do better after taking those losses.
And the newest player to this team, other than freshman, is the transfer from Duke, Lex Rogers. And of course, that Dayton game, that Purdue game, those were her first 2 games with this team in a playing atmosphere other than just practice all last season. Maybe they just needed some charisma between that team.
Now, Alexis Rogers, you know, after sitting out a year, that obviously has to be tough on her, as it would be on any player. You know, not only being able to play with your team on a regular basis, but just a full season off, just not being in competition, had to be tough on her. But she certainly did a great job for the team this year. Multiple times the Mid-American Conference Player of the Week. Many times she had a double-double between points and rebounds, and she averaged double digits in points all season long. She really stepped up in big games for the team this season, and she's the reason they were, or she's the reason they got so many accomplishments this
Well, I
season.
think all that practice time helped. You set out the year. That really does hurt for any player because players want to be out there playing with their teammates. But it must have helped. She watched and she studied the team and she saw things that she could do out there once she got the chance, the opportunity to go out there and and she did it.
Definitely benefits. Yep.
The one returning senior was Jessica Slagle, and going from not starting until your senior year, that she was always the sixth man for that team and always came up big when the team needed her most. However, her points were just amazing for starting your first season.
She played behind a couple of great players in Lauren Prohaska and Tracy Pontius. Lauren Prohaska, obviously one of the all-time greats for the women's basketball team, as I said earlier. But she got all that experience while being a leader on the bench and coming in and finally getting to give her full leadership on the court and get a majority of the minutes as opposed to less than half the minutes a game. Really got an opportunity for her to show what she brought to the table, and she averaged double-digit scoring this season as well. She did get a Mid-American Conference Player of the Week honor at one time, and she was a true leader on the floor for this team, and she represented what seniors are.
And there was also 5 new freshmen coming in on this team, so that adds to the youth of this team. And for those 5 freshmen, Kayla Hulls ended up going down with an ACL tear early in the season. However, Jasmine Matthews came up big, started for this team, and it's hard to put into words the difference that she made for this team.
Jasmine Matthews was the key to what this Falcons team was all this season, and that was stepping up. She didn't start right away in the beginning of the season, but then she came in and became a starter on this team, and she was a big-time three-point shooter, I think better than a lot of people expected from this team because they didn't know a lot about the freshmen coming into the season, and that's what made this team even better, having freshmen step up. And Jasmine Matthews was a defensive player as well. She was, if you're going to go up against the team with their best player, Jasmine Matthews is going to be on that player. And she did a great job. She really suffocates off the top players for the team and bothers them while being able to shoot the ball. That's both ends, double threat.
I couldn't agree more. She has a bright future coming ahead of her. She scored 13 points in the VCU game. That's what you want out of your point guard. Good offense, good defense, like you said, and I think the future looks bright at the point guard position.
Yes, the team is so young. I feel that next season they have even greater expectations out of them because they are so young. They have so much more to come back and so much more to fight for next year.
Let's go into when they started Mid-American Conference play. They opened up with Kent State and OU. These 2 teams to open up with were tough teams to open up, and this is now the first time that away teams in the MAC have come to the Stroh Center, and to see what kind of atmosphere that brought to these games, and always coming to Bowling Green is tough, but to come into a new arena, it's got to be kind of an intimidation factor for these away teams.
It was very intimidating for any team to play in Anderson Arena. And then you come here to the Stroh Center. It's a new gym, the Falcons' home floor. But for Mid-American Conference teams, they know each other so well. There's a lot of coaches in this league that have seen each other year after year after year, and that's looking at Maria Fantana-Rosa from Miami. There's a Kent State coach and Bob Lindsay. And then Tricia Kolb, she's kind of new to Toledo, but she's already proven herself to compete with the Falcons and get a couple of wins against them. It's, a lot of tough Mid-American Conference teams, but the Falcons this season did a very good job winning on their home floor. They came up one win away from getting the most amount of wins during the regular season on their home floor.
And you talked about some of the coaches in the MAC, and our coach, Kurt Miller, of course, dealt with his own set of adversity throughout the season, going into the Central Michigan game, which was an overtime win for the Falcons. He came up with he had a stroke in the Eastern game right before that, so that was the first game that he missed. And for these players to continue their routine going into a huge game at Central, well, it has to be one of the highlights of the year, just as a routine, just as a huge win for this team.
Coach Miller still did coach in that next game versus Ball State until they, got that official word that he did have a stroke. But for him to have a associate head coach like Jennifer Roos to really step up and fill his position, get 2 wins, that was big. The entire pattern for this team this season was stepping up.
And that's all we have for women's basketball. We'll be right back to talk about how the Falcon hockey team ended their season.
Plus, we also have a look at the men's basketball season. Stay with us.
Welcome back. The BGSU hockey team had a successful season, and the team finished 4th in the Central Collegiate Hockey Association tournament played in Detroit. BGSU lost to Michigan 3-2 in double overtime in the semifinals. Then the Falcons played for 3rd place against the Miami Redhawks. They fell 4-1. BGSU coach Chris Bergeron is trying to help this team focus on the positives of the season.
Exciting. It showed potential. But then it frustrates you. How did we only get 5 league wins? But, you know, I don't think I can look at it in those terms, and I have to fight, us as a staff has to fight ourselves on that, to not look at it that way. I don't think we can look at the Michigan game as a game we gave away. I think that's just what was supposed to happen that night, and we need to use this whole season as a learning tool and as part of the progression of us getting here and taking over this program, which getting to Joe Louis in our second year, I think, was very positive. And that's a nice experience now. We don't have to experience it for the first time anymore. We've already experienced it.
Preparations for the 2012 and 13 season start Monday. Coach Bergeron is hoping the success from this season will carry over and motivate his team for next season.
I felt like we had made a nice stride from last year to this year in terms of what was in place, but we were really young. I think there's more in place next year in terms of leadership. I think there's more in place next year in terms of depth and having a more veteran presence, even though that presence is probably going to be sophomores and juniors. At least it's going to be, you know, second and third year guys and not first and second year guys in terms of the biggest number of people on our team. So I think there's more things in place now than there were last September. And then the other thing that we have in place now that we didn't have in last September is a little bit of momentum from the last 3 weeks. Excuse me, the last, you know, the second half of the season, I think, has garnered some momentum here. And we have to find a way as a program to wrap our arms around it and use it in a positive way as we again start to prepare for next season.
Ray Crawford, a BGSU alumnus and current reporter for the Columbus Blue Jackets, was in town this week for the TCOM Career Expo and had an opportunity to sit down with reporter Brittany Prince.
Thanks, guys. Here I am at the BGSU Ice Arena, and I am with BGSU alum Ray Crawford. Thanks for being here with us today.
Oh, it's a treat for me, Brittany. Thanks very much.
So, real quick, let's talk about your past here at BGSU, since you're a graduate of the class of 1993,
yes,
correct?
That's correct.
All right, tell me a little bit about what you did while you were here at PG.
Oh, well, yeah, I think a lot of it was the academics, certainly was a major part, and also the extracurriculars for me, the things outside of the classroom. Being involved with BG24, being one of the first anchor teams to really kind of get that off the ground was a big thrill for me and a great memory. To be a part of the Bowling Green Radio Sports Organization, getting a lot of experience there. I just enjoyed campus. I'm originally from Dayton, so like anybody, like any student now, like yourself or anybody else, when you go off to college, it's an opportunity to grow up, learn a little bit about yourself, and certainly I have nothing but fond memories of Bowling Green. I always enjoy coming back, and it's great to see the excitement and energy of the young people on campus, and I really enjoy my opportunities whenever I get a chance to come back to campus.
That's great. I know we love having you. We just recently had the TCOM Career Day, and you're here, and what kind of things did you take part in while you're on campus?
Well, I first was able to arrive for the luncheon. I had some work commitments that got me here a little bit later in the day, but an opportunity to visit with students, I really get an enjoyment out of that. It's great to see the optimism and excitement in young people's eyes and their faces as they try to embark and get set to embark on this career, because it's a different industry than the one that I entered 20-some years ago. But if you have a passion for it and a love for it and ambition and great work ethic, you can certainly achieve a lot of things, and it's great to see that energy here on campus and to be able to walk around and talk to folks about our business and to get reacquainted with people I haven't seen in a long time, talk to some of the faculty and some of my other colleagues in the industry. That's always fun too.
Now, do you have any advice for students going into our field of you know, what they should do getting started?
Well, it's a very competitive field. Broadcast media, even in digital media now, which is becoming more prevalent here of late in the last couple of years. You've got to be willing to work hard, sacrifice. You have to be patient. You have to be persistent, and you have to be dedicated and devoted to it. Just like anything else, to be successful in any other career, no matter what it is, whether you're going to be a teacher or work in computer science or be a doctor or a lawyer, broadcast industry is something you really have to dedicate a lot of time and energy to. Being creative, being willing to make mistakes, And learning from the good times and the bad times. You're going to grow a lot in the business. You're going to have good days and bad days. It's just what you make of those. It helps formulate and inform the person who you are, just like any life experience.
Now, being a BGSU alum and a hockey fan as well, were you able to catch any of the CCHA tournament games this past weekend?
I was. I mean, that was my March Madness for me, was watching Bowling Green in Michigan. What a great game there at Joe Louis Arena. Very historic building. The first time the Bowling Green hockey team has been there in so many years, and what a great run for BG. And it always reminds me, every time I see that brown and orange in the ice, it reminds me of my days at the ice arena and watching the Jeff Blakes and the Nelson Emersons and Jerry York coaching the team and all the great success that they had in the 80s. And it's exciting to see what the new coach and his staff has been able to do and really re-energizing the hockey program here at Bowling Green. And I expect nothing but great things from this point forward.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on that too, because we were the 11th seed going into their tournament, and to be able to make it to the semifinals is huge for our school. The first time since 2001. Now, what do you think that does for our hockey program? Since of late, it's kind of been in question whether we should keep it or not keep it. So do you think this, like you said, re-energizes it a little bit?
Well, first, I can't imagine Bowling Green without a hockey team. For them to have that Cinderella story, which they had in the CCHA, was just a thrill. And I think it's going to go a long way in recruiting. I think the coaching staff is still trying to get their feet underneath them, trying to establish a program and build it back. And a run like that to get to Joe Louis Arena in the CCHA semifinals can only do positive things for the future of the program. And so now you just hope that they're able to build off of that momentum, get some solid recruits, and that will certainly help things in here and get the excitement back here at the ice arena.
And Ray, I think that's exactly what we're going to do. We have a young coaching staff, and a lot of our key players were freshmen and sophomore. For them to be able to have that experience their freshman and sophomore year is really key, and I think that we're going to be able to grow and just have better seasons from here on out.
Yeah, it's great momentum, especially when those young players can get that experience. That's something that somebody, a junior or a senior, might experience, and then those guys leave. To have a freshman and a sophomore playing in an environment of that kind of pressure in that CCHA tournament at that level, that only does positive things for them as a player, as an individual, and for a team as a unit, because now they've been exposed to that, and so in the future, nothing's going to be too big for them. So hopefully the sky is the limit, and next year we'll be standing here talking about a CCHA championship and a Mason Cup and going on to the NCAA tournament, and hopefully in the not too distant future, the Frozen Four.
Now, I hadn't mentioned this before, but you are the on-air talent with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So just questioning you a little bit about the NHL, do you have any predictions going into the NHL playoffs?
Well, with the Blue Jackets being in the Western Conference, certainly we pay a lot of attention to the West, and this year is no different in terms of the competitiveness from top to bottom, with the exception, unfortunately, of the Blue Jackets, the Edmonton Oilers down there near the bottom as well. But things are really crowded in the middle. As everybody knows, the top 8 from each conference make it in. And just until here recently, between spots 7 and 11, you're looking at a win and a loss here from being above or below that cut line. So the West has been very competitive. Vancouver's back in it again. They're near the top. St. Louis has been a great story since Ken Hitchcock became their head coach back in November. And the East, you've got the same players out there. Sidney Crosby, as we speak today, is healthy and playing for the Penguins. The Boston Bruins can't count them out, especially when you have such great goaltending. And I think that's going to be key for a lot of teams, separating the teams that make it far in the Stanley Cup playoffs and those who might have disappointment early on in the early rounds is goaltending. You got a Tim Thomas and a Tuukka Rask, a great 1-2 punch there in Boston. And the same goes for Vancouver as well with Luongo and Schneider.
Well, thank you so much, Ray, for being with us today and taking your time to visit BGSU and be here for the students. And we had a great time having you at TCOM Career Day, and then giving a little bit of your knowledge on the CCHA and the NHL. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Always great to be back.
All right, and that's it for me here at the BGSU Ice Arena. We'll be right back with Falcon Center after this.
Welcome back to Falcon Center.
The BGSU men's basketball team ended their season last week. The Falcons took on the Oakland Golden Grizzlies in the CollegeInsider.com tournament. With the terrible loss, the men lost 69-86.
Yeah, not a very good loss there. Jordan Crawford scored 21 points for us, but outside of that, let's get into the brackets. That's what it's all about. March Madness, Sweet 16, here we are. And Kentucky, Indiana, that is one matchup I'm looking forward to. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be a rematch. Certainly, Kentucky needs to hopefully take down Indiana in the rematch. Indiana's not that strong. away from Indiana. They're 5-6 on the road, so look for the Wildcats to take over as Anthony Davis and Terrence Jones combined for 10 points the last time they met on December 10th. That's what I'm looking forward to. What about you guys?
I'm looking forward to Ohio State taking on Cincinnati. Both teams coming out of Ohio. Ohio has 4 teams in the Sweet 16, first time ever. And I think that this is a big matchup because there's a lot of rivalry brewing with football the last couple of years with how Cincinnati's program's been up. And now here we go, we got them in basketball. The original, big-time matchup for those two teams. Obviously, they had the 2 national championships with Cincinnati beat Ohio State in both of those back in the 60s. So I think this is a good revival for both these teams. And just the fact that it's a Sweet 16 game with a lot on line for both guys. I really want to see Yancey Gates take on Jared Zellinger inside. I think that's going to be a fantastic matchup, and I'm really excited about that one. All Ohio teams there.
I'm really excited about the Michigan State and Louisville game. 2 great coaches in Tom Izzo and Rick Pitino. They know each other very well. They know their style of play very well. This is a matchup that I'm looking for. The great play from Draymond Green from Michigan State has just been outstanding this entire season. He's held the team on his back, averaging nearly a double-double this whole season, and then the NCAA tournament. I feel that would be a great matchup in the Sweet 16.
The one matchup I'm going to be watching is the North Carolina and your MAC team, the Ohio Bobcats. A surprise team, obviously, to get to the Sweet 16, but an even bigger surprise as they'll be matched up against North Carolina. Of course, so much history in the tournament. But will North Carolina be able to play without Kendall Marshall? He did have surgery. The cast is reportedly off, according to sources. Will he play in this game? Will he play the next game if they win? Will he not play till championship weekend if they win? It's all a lot of questions, but don't write off this team yet. They still have the All-American Tyler Zeller. They still have Harrison Barnes. And this team, they're deep. They're deep, and they could give Ohio's going to give them some trouble, but I'm not so sure if they can overcome the North Carolina Tar Heels.
You still have John Henson coming back from the injury.
Is he 100%?
See, I think that's what they're going to do with Kendall Marshall. Though, since it's Ohio, granted, not one of the best teams in the Sweet 16 left, I think Kendall Marshall will kind of ease his way into it, maybe not even play the first half. If for some reason the Bobcats just, start having a little upset alert here, then maybe Kendall Marshall will get in for the second half. Either way you look at it, North Carolina really shouldn't have any problems in that matchup. And then who are they going to face? NC State or Kansas? Kansas squeaked by against Purdue.
One thing about the Henson injury, when he was on the bench, taped up, ready to play against Creighton, Coach Roy Williams said in his press conference the day before the game that he would use John Henson if it came to a close game with the season really on the line. He would use John Henson. He did not. The game was close. He did not use Henson. I don't look for him to use Kendall Marshall in this, but we shall see. It'll be an interesting matchup.
And that's it for this edition of Falcon Center.
Be sure to tune in tomorrow at 5:30 for BG24 News. Thank you. Have a great night.